Yes, indeed. Thank you for spending your morning with me. I'm Sue Smith, sitting in for Elias for the next couple of weeks. Elias on a very well-deserved vacation. And, it's been 2 hours. I'm figuring out the phone number, the text line. Lots of you texting in. Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here. I'll get it all sorted out. Right now, coming up, we are going to have a conversation about cyclists, and I'm sure a lot of you have a lot to say. So just a reminder, the text line is 514-790-0800, but it is bike season. And Vélo Québec is launching a June awareness campaign. They want cyclists to be more aware of pedestrians. Jean-François Rheault is the president and CEO of Vélo Québec, joins me on the line. Good morning.
Good morning, Sue. Thanks for having me.
So why is Vélo Québec focusing on pedestrian safety this year?
Well, it's been a common theme that we've heard in the public space that cyclists were not necessarily respecting pedestrian priority. We see the SAAQ doing lots of campaigns for drivers, for cars, and we felt that it was an interesting opportunity to speak to our community of cyclists and remind them that pedestrians have the priority. And in order to do that, we defined 5 different contexts that we believe are the most important ones. And so far, it's been a very successful campaign with lots of good comments.
It's funny. I mean, I am both a cyclist and a pedestrian, and frequently the two meet in the city for sure. So I want to talk a little bit about that. But tell me what those 5 pillars are, the 5 different things that you're highlighting.
Yeah. Well, first of all, the pedestrians always have the priority, but we found that 5 situations required a bit more of attention. First of all, a pedestrian crossing. When the cyclists approach a pedestrian crossing, the pedestrian has the priority. Around bus stops where people get off the bus and get on the bus, special attention needs to be made. Around school bus also. Last year, there was a unfortunate event that happened in the Mile End. Around school bus, cyclists must respect the stop sign. Yep. School crossing guards are also an area where we hear that cyclists often do not respect the rules. And then finally, pedestrian streets, where we have many of pedestrian streets in Montreal. And on some of them, cyclists are welcome. So in the context where they are welcome, it's important to remind that, they shall not surprise pedestrians or scare them. So these are the 5 different contexts.
So, I mean, these seem pretty obviously kind of rules of the road. Like, look at watch the cross stops, watch the buses, basically look out for pedestrians. Why do you think you have to highlight these things, kind of point out the obvious?
Mm-hmm. Well, I think that when it comes to road safety, and that's not only for cyclists, but that's for all road users, we don't have a very good culture of road safety in Quebec, if we compare it to other provinces. And, there's something very important in our code that is not well known, is the duty of caution. So when you get around, whether you're in a truck, car, bike, or walk, you need to adapt to the conditions to make sure you have safe behavior towards, other road users. And you also need to spend extra care on vulnerable users. And for cyclists, pedestrians are more vulnerable. So by focusing our attention and the communication messages around these 5 specific contexts, we feel that we can create a culture change. And overall, this campaign is putting in light this duty of caution that applies to all road users. But we thought it was important to speak to our cyclists.
I think it's super beautiful, the idea of a culture of caution. I think it's something I very rarely see on the road. I'm also a driver and a bike rider and a pedestrian. But I want to ask you how you get the message across. But I think, I'm assuming here, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, that you've got kind of 2 populations. One are regular cyclists who probably have some kind of lien with Vélo Québec. And then there are the thousands of people, tens of thousands of people who use the Bixies. who aren't necessarily regular cyclists, aren't necessarily like on your mailing list, or so how do you communicate to them?
Yeah, well, that's an excellent question. So yes, to our members and our crowd, we also have campaigns on social media. We also, as a matter of fact, have advertisement on big C stations. I'm very happy this morning I get to talk about the campaign. So we also talk about the campaigns in the media. Yeah. I do think that, taking a step back, if I looked at the one thing that the government has done is to promote the safety corridor on highways. 10 years ago, there was a big difference between behavior in Quebec and Ontario when it comes to the presence of police vehicles or towing trucks on highways. Mm-hmm. People did not really change lanes. Right now, we see that in Quebec. So I feel that we can make progress in using these types of campaigns. Yeah. But it's true that the campaign needs to be seen, and that's what we're trying to do this week. We're also going to have we're also going to have awareness messages on bike paths, and we're hoping also to do that on pedestrian streets. So we're just at the start of the campaign. We want the message to get across as much as possible.
Mm-hmm. I have to say, I'm getting lots of text messages in. People are, complaining about cyclist behavior. How sort of frustrating is it for you, who I'm assuming is a very responsible cyclist, to sort of have so many people who are, let's face it, there are lots of cyclists out there who do disregard all these rules.
Yeah, I feel, the rule, how I feel about this does not really care. The rules of the road are the rules of the road, mm-hmm. and cyclists, and cyclists must respect them as all other users. But then, if you ask me about my feeling towards this, I feel that we're much more severe with cyclists. Mm-hmm. You go to every traffic light in Montreal, someone will run the red lights. After the light is over. Same thing with speeding. But somehow these bad behavior are normalized because we've integrated in how we get around. That being said, that doesn't excuse cyclists for not respecting the rules. So that's why we're doing the campaign, and we're trying to build this culture shift with the effort with raising an awareness about pedestrian priority.
Yeah, yes, and I'm making the point, which I'm sure you're very well aware of, that culture shift is difficult. But I take your point about the emergency vehicles on the side of the highways, and even wearing seatbelts, right? These things were unheard of years ago, and we have changed them. I'm wondering, though, you mentioned bike paths. I'm wondering how infrastructure is part of this, is helpful. More bike mm-hmm. paths, or to improve safety.
Yeah. Well, good infrastructure induce good behavior. When you have, a bike path that is designed well, and where you're protected at the intersection, and all the following, like many studies have shown that once you increase the quality of the bike path, you also increase the quality of the behavior. The other thing also is by, developing a more diverse cyclist population, the behavior also gets better. If you only attract the fearless and the fearless bike riders, then it's not the type of population that respect the rules. So good infrastructure has an impact, and also the having different types of bike riders. And I'll just end by saying that we have things like e-bikes and the increase of bike riding in Montreal that are factors that are making it
more complicated.
That feels more complicated. So mm-hmm. that's why we need to come up with better solutions.
Mm-hmm. All right, we are going to end it there, but I will say not a lot of love coming in from our text line about cyclists. So good luck to you, François Rheault. It's an interesting campaign. Thank you.
Thank you very much for having me, and I'm sending lots of love to your listeners. I still like them.
Good.
Thanks for your time.
Okay. That's Jean-François Rheault. He's the president and CEO of Vélo Québec, making the case, actually trying to get cyclists to respect pedestrians. And yes, so lots of you are saying, really? Ask him if he stops at stop signs. I'm a pedestrian. I walk through parks. The cyclists are there. They're on lackady. They don't they're walking on sidewalks and yeah. So not a lot of love out there on the text line for cyclists.